Hey, this is Michael Pashnibes from Psalm, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Tom Schlatter, guitar player of hundreds of AU. Tom has been a staple in our scene and a regular in bands I've grown up listening to over the years. He got his start in the emotional hardcore band You and I, who made a big impact in our local scene with the release of their EP, Within the Frame. Tom then went on to be in The Assistant, who released 2 LPs and toured extensively all over the world. He recently joined Saetia on guitar, and he founded Hundreds of AU, who just released an excellent new LP called Life in Parallel. So we discuss all of his bands and a lot more. It's a great conversation, and it's coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Deathwish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The 20th anniversary reissue of Free at Last by Stretch Armstrong is up right now to order. The classic 2005 hardcore release is on vinyl for the first time ever. It's remastered by Alan Duche with updated artwork and retrospective from the band. The Her Heads on Fire tour of the UK is underway right now. Check their page or the Iodine page for a full list of dates. The Dogs of Hope, a benefit for shelter animals compilation, is out right now on vinyl. The second pressing is up, and all proceeds benefit an animal shelter in Alabama. It's a great cause, so pick it up today. The self-titled EP from Barbaro is up on streaming now for the first time ever. It's originally co-released by Curve of the Earth Records and Poltergeist Records in November 1999. So make sure you check it out. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of September, Persistent Vision Records. Persistent Vision Records is an independent label based in Richmond, Virginia, and it's home to a ton of great bands like Page 99, Pygmy Lush, Kowloon Walled City, Rain, Blind Girls, and Farn. You can order online at persistentvisionrecords.com and deathwishinc.com. Dark Days, Bright Nights Festival, presented by Persistent Vision Records and Your Screaming Youth, is happening this weekend, September 26th through the 28th at Studio 23 in Richmond, Virginia. Tickets and weekend passes are on sale right now at darkdaysbrightnights.org. This year's lineup features City of Caterpillar, Iron Lung, Reversal of Man, Sleepy Time Trio, The Dazzling Killmen, Frail, and many more. Follow the festival on Instagram at Dark Days Bright Nights VA. For more information, head to persistentvisionrecords.com, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Persistent Vision Records. Okay, so check back in with me at the end of the show. We'll do a recap of the conversation with Tom. I'll recap the Slow Crush gig that just happened here in Brooklyn recently. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Tom Schlatter of Hundreds of AU. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Tom Schlatter. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tom, it's great to have you here. You know, you've done a lot. You're doing a lot. Hundreds of AU has a new album coming out called Life in Parallel, which I've heard. I love it. It's one of my favorite records of the year, and I can't wait for everybody else to hear it. And there's plenty to talk about, Tom, but first I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I woke up with a sore throat, which was probably because I was at a festival in Canada all weekend around probably 1,200 people. So I probably caught something. So that's how today is going. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a slow week, but it's getting enough done, getting enough done. Was it New Friends Fest?
Yes. Yeah, I was at New Friends Fest. Yeah.
Did you play or did you just go?
Yeah, one of my old bands played. I played bass in a band called Capacities. We played from like 2013 to like 2015 or so. And then we haven't played in about 10 years. And they asked us to play the show. So couldn't turn that down. It's a great fest.
Yeah, great fest. I've had Egan and Rohan from Respire on the show at different times. And that fest is just always a good lineup. How was it? Was it good?
Oh, it was great. It was killer. Favorite band of the fest was probably Drought from Oakland, California.
Yep.
And then second favorite band was Pierre Ries from Malaysia. Yeah, I never thought I'd get to see them, so it was kind of like a life dream for me to see them. So that was great.
Amazing. Drought, our label mates.
Yes. This was my first time seeing them live. And it was an experience for sure. Like, it was everything I like out of a live performance from a band. You know what I mean? So it was great.
Yeah, I hope I get to see them at some point. That's awesome. So where do you live?
I live in upstate New York, outside of Albany, New York, in a city called Troy. When I tell people I live in upstate New York, coming from New Jersey, people are like, "Oh, so you live in like Westchester?" But like, the rest of New York is giant and massive, and trying to explain to people where it is. It's just like the northeast side of New York State, kind of.
Yeah. I half joke, half serious. I call Yonkers and above upstate. And, depending on who you're talking to, they don't like that. But I do it as a bit because it's funny to me.
As a New Jersey person, that's how I thought of upstate New York as well until I moved here. So
yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. I've been here since 2012.
Oh, which part? Which part are you in?
Williamsburg.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So you grew up in Jersey, right?
Yeah, I grew up. I grew up in the part of New Jersey that is now referred to by everyone as the Jersey Shore. We just called it the beach when I was a kid, but that's where I grew up. Yeah.
Where at?
I grew up in Tom's River, right outside of like Seaside Heights and Point Pleasant.
Okay. How did you like it? Did you like growing up there?
It was strange having your town be part of like a tourist culture. So like the place would be pretty quiet, and especially on the barrier island, it would be extremely serene. And then from like May till September, it was an absolute madhouse. And like the tourist economy just like really dictated a lot of like how things ran. So that was just unusual to live in a place like that was sort of descended upon for 4 months out of the year. And then it would just go back to like a quiet, sleepy town after that. After that, I moved up to New Brunswick, New Jersey to go to school. And New Brunswick was the opposite. It was like during the school year, it was descended upon by college kids. And then from like June to September, there was no one there. So it was kind of the opposite.
How about your relationship with music? Is it something you've always been interested in?
I think I'm definitely a product of my time of growing up in the 80s and having MTV be like such a ubiquitous part of the culture. And furthermore, having like guitar led music being such a big part of the culture. So I think had I grown up in a different time when music was being delivered to us in a non-video format and guitar music wasn't, the biggest thing, I probably would have made some different choices about what kind of music or what instrument I would have played. But at the time, it was like guitar music and MTV was so much part of the culture that it just kind of seemed like if you're going to play an instrument, you should play guitar. So,
right.
So my introduction was just like what was going on MTV in the 80s, which retrospectively is not the best quality of music, but
even Van Halen.
There was I could still get down with a little bit of Van Halen. I could still get down with a little bit of Def Leppard, but it's few and far between. And then, of course, 1991 came, and alternative rock kind of took over, and all of a sudden, the idea of like starting a band and like playing in a band and stuff seemed like way more realistic because we were seeing people on MTV who dressed like us and skateboarded and just kind of looked like me and my friends. They weren't, it went from like people wearing like spandex and having long hair to people wearing like baggy jeans and skateboarding and playing guitar. And we were like, oh, that's us. Cool. And so that's kind of like where the idea of starting a band sort of came into fruition, I think.
Yeah. Did you skate?
Yeah. I started skating like really young. It was like a huge part of my life. There was like an independence to it back then of just like leaving the house, on the weekend at like 10 o'clock in the morning and wherever the day took you through skateboarding. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was dangerous, but like you'd hear about skate spots and you'd travel around and yeah, it was just a very, very fulfilling, but also sort of like built a lot of independence in me. I think I wish I could still skate. I'm just so fearful now in my later years. So
yeah, it just seems too easy to get hurt. I remember skating being like a thing. I can slightly remember the late 80s, and it was just everyone had a skateboard. It was in movies. It was in video games. It was like in the culture. And I had a skateboard, but I wasn't like in it. You know what I mean? I just had a skateboard and I'd like ride it a little bit, and that was pretty much the extent of it.
Well, I mean, it's strange because late 80s, early 90s, if you were into skateboarding, it was like you were a bad kid, like no one trusted you if you were into skateboarding in terms of like authority figures and adults. And it's almost like by the time I left for college and got out of skateboarding, that's when like Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out and things became a little bit more accepting, I guess, of like skate culture. And so, yeah, I was bummed to kind of see that I missed the boat on that. It was like, I was like too early into skateboarding for that. So
were you good? Could you like pull off tricks and that kind of stuff?
I had a great time skateboarding. I don't know that I was necessarily like great at it, but I was in a few contests and I placed in them. And so that was, I guess, good enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like out of like my group of friends, like there was like three of us that kind of had kind of like achieved a level of talent where it seemed reasonable to get into contests. So yeah, I guess you could say I was kind of good.
That's pretty legit. If you're placing in contests, you're ahead of most other kids, probably. So how about your intro to this world of music? What was your thing? Punk, hardcore, emo? Did you listen to everything? How did you find it and what grabbed you?
So like, I guess with the skateboarding came like the ads in the skateboarding magazines, like in the late 80s. Thrasher magazine was like pretty big. Transworld magazine was pretty big. And they would have ads for like, I don't know, you'd see stuff for like bands that were on like Epitaph and SST. And so I kind of had some like coherence of like what that world was. And I remember like putting on a skate video and hearing some of this stuff, like hearing the Descendants and hearing Black Flag and being like, wow, that's really cool music. I don't know where I would be able to find that in like the suburbs where I lived. And there wasn't like, the internet at the time to just go look that stuff up or order it online or anything. So I had to kind of lean on the whole, like find the older person who like owns that stuff and then give them a blank tape and say, hey, can you make me a mixtape of this stuff? Or, like that sort of thing. It wasn't kind of like you could just order that stuff online or go to the mall and buy it or anything like that. So we had some older kids in school who were like kind enough to kind of put like the Misfits and the Sex Pistols and like all these like sort of like preliminary punk bands onto a mixtape for us. And like those songs are really rudimentary to play on guitar as well. So it was like, not only did it get us into punk, it also kind of instilled us with the confidence to be able to play guitar and get through a whole song and kind of be proud of that. So I think maybe like out of that whole slew of bands that we heard at first, like Minor Threat was probably the first one that grabbed me really, like, and I kind of like latched onto it. And then from there, finding out about like Fugazi and Embrace, but kind of like looking into Minor Threat. And so that opened up the whole sort of like post-hardcore, emo, etc. And there was a guy in our town. Actually, there was like a group of people in our town. There were older kids doing a house, and they were doing shows with mostly like those noisier sort of like early 90s ebullition sounding kind of bands. I don't know if you're familiar with that stuff, but they were having a lot of those bands play. And I would get a ride to those shows, and man, those shows were great. It was pretty amazing. So,
How old were you when you were doing that?
probably like 15.
Okay. Yeah, because I crossed paths with you, not directly, but when I got into this music in 98. And
Okay.
at that time, You and I was a band. You guys were playing. You played some of the early shows I went to. And there was that Somerset house where Jeff Rickley used to live. And that was where the last You and I show was. Did you live there, or did you just play there sometimes?
I moved in about 2 weeks after that show.
Okay.
Yeah, because Jeff had lived there for the year before and was doing the shows there. And they had a roommate that wanted to move out, and I wanted to move out of my house. And actually, it was funny. Me and their roommate switched. Like, he took my room in my house, and I took his room in his house. Like, so I moved in with Jeff like shortly after that show, and then we started doing shows there together for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Was it difficult at all living in the house and throwing shows there? Did stuff ever go wrong?
I would say like it was relatively, we got through it relatively unscathed. Jeff probably has a little bit more stories from like the first year of shows there when they were still sort of like getting their wits about them. And but by the time I moved in, they sort of had a plan of like, here's how this works. We don't, like, these areas are like not accessible to the public. We just open the basement door in the back and people go in through it was just, they kind of had it a little bit more down at that point.
Yeah. When Jeff was on the show, he said Sean McCabe from Ink and Dagger tried to walk off with their TV, but he caught him in the act. And he was just kind of like, I was like, classic.
This totally sounds in character, but yeah, I didn't live there for that one. So
yeah. I did see the last You and I show there. Well, I'm going to circle back to that. So you and I get started around 97 when you're living in New Brunswick?
It started in 96. I was in high school still. Senior year of high school, I started that band.
Oh, when you were still in high school. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are some of the influences? I can definitely hear some of that classic emo influence. I'm talking about like Rites of Spring and that whole era, and just all the great early 90s stuff that was going on. What were some of the influences? What was some of the stuff that you wanted to put into that band?
I mean, by the time we get to 1996, it's like I had been exposed to the heavier sort of hardcore that was happening at the time, like Unbroken and Groundwork and Human Remains and Earth Crisis. And that stuff was, I loved that stuff. We were also very much into bands like Reversal of Man and Portraits of Past. And then there was like emo bands like Indian Summer that we were really into. And I think when we started the band, we were just like, let's not be this band or that band. Let's try to do all this stuff. Let's try to incorporate all these influences we have. And sometimes it worked flawlessly, and we were able to pretty seamlessly put a song together that would incorporate these things without sounding like too disjointed or other times we didn't pull it off as well. But yeah, I mean, that was the main sort of impetus behind it, was just to play all of this music that we liked. And so all of those influences sort of went into it.
Nice. Yeah, it does pretty seamlessly blend those elements of classic emo, and then it'll get really heavy. It jumps between all of those things pretty good, and then it just mixed all of those things really well.
And I guess that was the exciting part about it, was just kind of being on like new ground like that, saying like, let's just try this new thing, and that like we're not going to choose to kind of stay in one box. And through that, like, we were meeting other bands that were kind of trying to push that too. And so it was an interesting time.
How far out did you guys play? Like, how much touring did you do? I remember seeing you around the Northeast, seeing you a couple times, but how far out did you get?
The farthest west we got was Omaha, Nebraska. Did a tour with Saetia where we like did a bunch of dates in the Midwest, and Omaha was as far as we got. And I hold the Omaha show very dear, even today. Just, I remember we're in Omaha, Nebraska on New Year's Eve, 1998 going into 1999. And we played while midnight, like as the new year came in, and people like knew the words to our songs and stuff. And it was really strange. It was just a very serendipitous moment. And so if I think about that band, I try to think about like moments like that.
Yeah, I remember people liking you guys a lot. There was this show, it was this big show at the Melody Bar, and it was you and I, Zayo, who was that band that would have like the funny songs, but they were pretty good? Good, Clean Fun. Yeah,
Good, Clean Fun. Yeah.
It was a packed show, and at me and my one friend at the time were like, Zayo's the best band, and everyone else was like, no, you and I stole the show, and there was like a debate among us. But I just always remember you and I definitely winning over crowds whenever I saw you.
I mean, it's yeah, I think it was just different for people, and so we would stick out in people's minds, because it was like, you'd have like a heavier band like Zayo that was just like heavy the whole time, or you'd have a band like Good Clean Fun, which was like, traditional hardcore the whole time, and we were this band that was like, hey, let's just do let's try to do it all, and we were trying to do that, and I think it just stuck out at the crowd, kind of.
That is how was that tour with Saetia?
It was like a bad idea, because it was winter. It was that time, like when you're a student and you have that time between Christmas and New Year's to go on tour, and every band tries to go on tour. And we decided to go to the Midwest, which is freezing. So it was a bad idea in that regard. It was also the first tour we did as a 4-piece band, so that took a little getting used to for like the first day or two. I mean, in general, when I think about how large like the Saetia shows are now, it's when I tell people that like you and I and Saetia did a whole tour and we played to like 40 kids per show, they're kind of in disbelief, because they don't understand that back then this music wasn't very popular at all. And it was a very like niche sort of thing. You know what I mean? It was like,
that's why I'm curious, because Saetia is, and a lot of those bands are coming back now to much bigger audiences. And even in this scene back then, that music was more niche than a lot of other things going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. The sort of like renaissance of screamo in the contemporary time right now, via like TikTok or social media, that like young kids are getting into it and stuff like that. It's interesting. to talk to like these younger bands and tell them like, oh yeah, we played to like 40 kids. That's what it was like. And they're like, no way. Like, we're just like, yeah, man, go watch the videos. Like, that's what it's like. So yeah, that's what touring was like back then.
Right. So you and I, the last show in 1999 at that Somerset house, I remember this was back in the era when you had to go to South Street and go to like Rock and Roll Plus and Corrupted Image to get show flyers to see what's actually going on. And I think we picked up a flyer for that show and we drove there and it was sold out. But they were marking people by writing a number on their hands in Sharpie. So we just wrote a number on our hand to like,
I love it.
To like get into the basement to see this. We got to see some of the show. I remember a lot of emotion. It was very emotional. That basement was packed. You could barely see the band playing. You remember that?
Yeah. Like, I don't think that we had foresaw that sort of reaction to it. And so doing a basement just kind of seemed like, oh yeah, 50 kids will show up and we'll play a basement. It'll be fine for our last, and I think the number at the end was like 250 or something like that. And we were like, well, that wasn't very safe for us to do at all. Like, we probably should have thought this through and done it at like a bigger space with like maybe like a small stage so that people could see us. And like, but at the time it's like, we just had no self-confidence in that sort of thing. It was like, we had done this whole kind of career of music playing to like 50 kids at the most. And so why would our last show be anything else but that? That's just kind of the mindset that we were in. So that's where we landed with the basement. Yeah.
Why did that band end? It seemed like things were going well.
So the drummer, Chris, had developed asthma. And just like his doctor was like, it's probably not a good idea for you to be playing drums. So he actually, I think with the exception of maybe doing some like studio projects, he hadn't played drums at all for a band after the band ended. We did a reunion in 2011 and that was like the first time he had played drums in like 12 years. So it was, it's kind of like played drums like live in front of people. And he pulled it off. So
was the asthma that bad that he really couldn't play drums?
Yeah, I remember at like one practice, he just like passed out, and it was like worrisome. It was when we realized that this is the point we were at. It was like, oh shit, like this is, and I think we had made a decision at that point, like if one person leaves the band, let's just stop. Like we're not going to try to replace people or anything like that at this point.
Now that's loyalty, because I was going to ask, like, was there talk about getting a new drummer or anything?
Well, it was that, and also just kind of like, we start the band in 96, or 96, and like I'm a senior in high school, and then we end the band in 99, and I'm like freshman I'm a sophomore in college at that point, and like life had just changed so much. We all moved to different places. We had different things going on in our lives. The focal points of like starting the band as like high school kids had changed so much. And it was just kind of like, it felt weird to sometimes play these like older songs that like we felt so far removed from. And it's just kind of like, that was such an intense band that it was kind of like, it like ran its course for what it had to do at the time in our lives when we needed to do that. And I think we weren't very emotionally mature people, but I think it was emotionally mature for us to understand that and be like, yeah, maybe this isn't like something we should try to prolong or force, because like it's a time and place, so.
Where was the 2011 reunion?
Did that in Asbury Park, at a place called Asbury Lanes, which it was an old bowling alley in Asbury Park. And I believe at one point, maybe I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, so somebody could correct this, but I believe the singer from Lifetime had bought this building and was like, I'm going to keep it as a bowling alley, but I'm going to have shows there. And I'm going to serve food. And it became like this like restaurant, bowling alley, punk rock venue. And this was like before Asbury Park kind of like had a resurgence, which now Asbury Park is like super expensive. A larger booking company bought the building and they host like big shows there now, and it no longer a bowling alley. And, it's like, but yeah, we had the show in Asbury Park just because we're from New Jersey, and it was just kind of seemed like the place to do it. At that point too, it's like now I hear, it's like with Saetia, we did those reunions, and then like we've been touring like since then. Back then though, like with you and I, it was like, let's do one reunion show in our in close to our hometown. And like there was no expectation for like the band to tour or do anything like that. It was just like that's how reunion shows were back then. It's just like there's one show, you go see that show, and that's it.
How was the show?
I was surprised we were able to pull it off. And we were able to kind of do it as adults in terms of, and when I say that, I mean like we were able, like we knew how to like tune our guitars now. We knew like how to set our amps now, like all that stuff we didn't know how to do back then. And then sort of like perform the songs that we had written as high school kids, like as adults, looking through like a retrospective lens and, putting that emotion into it from like a more contemporary standpoint as adults. And like, it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like more like the professional version of the band, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. It's not something I would want to like, people have asked us to do reunions after that, like since then. And it's just not something that like, I don't think I'd want to do again, but like the idea that we were able to do it once, and for people that never got to see the band, they got to see the band. And we also got to do it in a way where like we weren't, I am trying to think, that was 2011. So let's just say we weren't that old yet. We were like old enough to where we could still pull that off. So it was like,
yeah, I still felt really young in 2011. Now that I look back, I didn't start feeling old sometimes until I hit 40, I guess. But 2011, I must have been what, 30? 29? Oh yeah, forget about it. So after the You and I ends, the assistant gets started, right? Pretty quickly after?
Yeah.
How does that come together?
That's sort of, I was living in New Brunswick, and I was dating this woman named Lee at that point, and she wanted to do a band, and we had known like all the other people in the band from different bands that they had played in around New Jersey. So the band started, and I think because you just had all these people in the band who had all had experience writing songs and playing in bands, it was like super quick to write songs because it was just people that kind of like had already been there. It wasn't like it was like our first band in high school trying to write songs or something. And so like the songwriting came together really, really well. And there was still like a little bit of like member sort of interest in like what we were all going to do after that. And so like the band would get asked to play a lot based on that. And then that just ended up being the band that I toured with the most, I think, in my 20s. Like we did 2 US tours, a European tour, did like 4 or 5 tours where we would just go to the Midwest or down to Florida. It was like most of my 20s for touring. It was pretty nonstop, but that was probably the time when I got to like meet the most people around the country and sort of like engage in that world of like sleeping on floors and playing shows and doing 12-hour drives to the next place that we're going to play. Like that was kind of that world, and it was awesome.
Yeah. I definitely remember seeing the assistant more than once. Do you remember playing a house show in 1999 with Torn Apart? Was
it like a family room, sort of? Like it wasn't a basement? It was like...
Yes, it was the assistant, Torn Apart, Blue Skies Fade, and
okay,
maybe some, that was my house. That was my parents' house.
I absolutely remember that because I remember that was I remember playing with Blue Skies Fade in like a family room. One of the bands had the drummer from All Else Failed in the band, and I forget which band it was.
Yeah,
And
it was. I think it was some band from New York. It was Paul.
Paul. Okay, yeah. And I remember talking to him at that show because I was a huge All Else Failed fan. And I remember talking to him at that show and being just totally stoked that he was in All Else Failed. And
me too.
Yeah, it was like, was that show supposed to be someplace else and it got moved to your parents' house? It was like at the last minute. Yes. Okay. Yep. I remember that show.
They couldn't get into the VFW hall, or I don't know, like they just couldn't use it at the last minute or something. So we put up a sign saying where it would be moved to and got the word out. And it was a great show. A lot of people, a lot of fun. But I think the singer of Torn Apart and his girlfriend, I think they collaborated to steal my parents' CDs. There was like a book of CDs, and they stole them. So hey, if either of you are listening, you owe me those CDs. But I still listen to Torn Apart sometimes, so I mostly got over it. You know, it was a long time ago.
But like your parents had a CD collection worthy of like was that guy's name Scott who sings for that band for Torn Apart?
I can't remember. I can see him in my mind. He had a very distinct look. I don't know what his name is though.
Interesting that this CD collection was like had piqued their interest. You know what I mean?
Or maybe they just swiped it to try to sell. Who knows? But
okay, all right.
Yeah, I didn't even remember. But a long time ago, I had Ian, the singer of Blue Skies Fade, on this podcast, like within our first 10 episodes or something.
Oh,
and
nice.
And he brought it up, and I didn't even remember, and then I got mad all over again.
You had to relive that moment.
But yeah, it was a good time. So wow, the assistant did a lot of touring. I mean, were you just, that was your focus at the time, just the band? Had you graduated college?
I was in college, and actually, I think like 3 of us were in college. So there was a lot of that, like going on tour for the semester break for like a month, or going on tour all summer for like a month and a half, or like we were all in that mode of our lives where we were doing that. Yeah, it was a lot of touring, and it was probably some of it like to a negative degree of just like, we shouldn't have been out for this long or something like that, you know, but I'm glad we did it.
Did you like it? Is that what you wanted to do? Did you just want to be like a full-time touring musician?
It was weird because we were definitely in that point of late 90s, early 2000s where selling out, quote unquote, was still kind of like not a thing you like wanted to go near, you know what I mean? And we were seeing some of our friends' bands like go on to make a career out of music. And it was like, well, they're still doing this thing that like they wanted to do. They didn't change what they were doing. And it just kind of seemed like the culture was now catching up with it. And so like media outlets like MTV and alternative press were taking an interest in like Thrice or Thursday or like these bands. And those bands weren't compromising, but it was just like the landscape was changing to be more accepting of that. And so I think there was like a chance for us to do that, but we were still very old fashioned, I would say, and firmly kind of like in that 90s mentality of like punk ethos and being like, no, we're not going to sell out or whatever, you know, but we had like labels get in touch with us, like majors, and we had toyed with the idea of like having them take us out to eat at like, you know, expensive like vegan restaurants or something, just to like get a free meal out of it or something. But yeah, it was never like a career path for me. It was always just more like an experience. And so the touring nonstop was done in between like having like jobs that we didn't like to work, and we would just work those jobs, quit, and then go on tour for a month or a month and a half or something. And then sometimes like we would get jobs or we'd have time off. Like I was working for the Board of Education and I had all of July off, and it was just like, okay, cool, I'm going to go on tour. Like, so you'd either like have a shitty job, you'd quit so you can go on tour, or you'd find a job that would cater to that life so there was no sort of like career path via the band, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. During that time, it seemed like you could make a living out of music at that time, or at least that it was a possibility, because you saw bands like Thursday blow up, Coheed and Cambria, Circa Survive, all these bands going on to bigger things over the years. So it seemed like it was possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you had told me like the Dillinger Escape Plan was going to get to the point where they can make a career out of their band, I mean, they're the most unorthodox sounding band that you can, find. And I remember seeing them in like a basement or like a VFW hall. And if you had told me that was going to be like a career path for them, I would have been like, really? You think so?
That was my favorite band for a while. When I showed it to people, they would be like downright upset with me. They would be like, what is this? Like, what what even is this?
Yeah. So, I mean, those opportunities were definitely opening up for people, and I think now in 2025, like, it's not as strange, you know what I mean? Like, we see like a band like Turnstile or something like that get huge and be able to make a career out of it. And everybody's like, cool. All right. Like, so.
Right. So the Assistant ends around 2003.
Yeah. We went to Europe in 2003 and then came home and played like another show or two and called it quits.
Any specific reason or?
I think probably just that life that I just described was just becoming like sort of like we had ambitions to do other things and you couldn't really do other things when like your main sort of objective was to just be on tour all the time or like, so the idea, like the guy who played drums for the Assistant, this guy Ross, he had ambitions to like get really into vegan cooking, and he started working at like a vegan restaurant outside of Philadelphia, and eventually like opened his own restaurant, which is still open today, and they're like an upscale vegan restaurant. His food is great, but it's like he had this ambition, like he's like, I want to do this thing, and I'm not gonna be able to do that if I'm leaving for tour like for a month and a half, like, and I think the rest of us were kind of in that boat too, where like, like we've devoted so much of our time and our life to this, and at the expense and sacrifice of like other things that we kind of wanted to do as well. So,
did you keep up with music over the years? It's quite a while until we get to Hundreds of AU.
Yeah, I should take some time off from music at some point. But basically from that point we just left off, which was like 2003, until now, I've been playing in bands the whole time. And it's one of those things, like it's been such my identity has been tied up in it, and my friendship circle has been tied up in it, and my sort of like mental health has been tied up in it, that I don't really know like another kind of like life to live at this point. And I wish I had like kind of taken some time off in there at some points to like learn other things, or like kind of like pursue maybe like some other sort of means of like art or creativity. But it was just like a band would end and I would get like people approaching me to start a band who were like super talented or creative, and I'd be like, I can't pass up this opportunity to play with those folks or this band or that band, And so now I'm 47 years old. It's 2025, and I play in 3 bands. So it's kind of a lot, but yeah.
I know what you're saying with like mental health and everything else being tied up in it, because I would do music when I could, if I could. The bands never got past local status, or they never got off the ground, or I got kicked out, or I quit, but I was always working on something, but always distracted by drinking too much or getting high, and because I was doing a lot of that for a while. But once I stopped doing that, I was solely focused on creative endeavors, this podcast being a main one, and now playing in bands being another one. And I go back and forth. I'm like, I can't do this every day. I can't work on this show every day, every night. I can't just go to band practice 2 times a week. I'm running myself ragged. But then just recently I'm thinking like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know about, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh, I just need a day off. I just need a day off. And then when I have a day off, I sit there and I'm like, what am I going to do? So imagine if that day was a week. Imagine if that week was a month. So I think I just need to suck it up and be busy all the time and be involved in these things like that. I don't know what else I would do otherwise. And I think the downtime might be bad for me. Is it that way for you? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to like, fill that downtime with other things. And like I bought a house 3 years ago, and there's stuff that always needs to be done. And so it's easy to kind of fill downtime that way. I love my job. I work at a public library. So like in terms of like being able to wake up every day and go to work and like what I do, I feel extremely fortunate. So there's been things like that. I've been, married for quite a while now, and like have a partner who's extremely supportive of me playing music and doing that kind of thing, but also having good like boundaries where it's like, hey, maybe you're taking on too much, and maybe don't be away every weekend this month, or, stuff like that, where it's like bringing me back down to earth, yeah, it's hard. I mean, like August and July, or I'm sorry, July especially, like I went to Europe with one band, came home, went to Montreal with another band, came home, had a weekend off, went to Toronto with another band. And it was just like I'm 47 years old. Like I don't know if I could do this to my body that much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just.
Yeah, well, we have to while we still can, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I was really inspired at New Friends Fest. I saw this what I could only assume was a dad with his kid. The dad looked to be like early 60s, maybe like late 50s, early 60s. And the kid looked to be about 18. And they were hanging out with each other, watching all the bands, and like seemed stoked. And I was like, respect, that's awesome. I was like, I hope I can be at that point.
So what are the 3 active bands? Hundreds of AU, Capacity, and?
So Capacities only really does shows at like, this was our first show in like 10 years or something. So Capacities doesn't really play very much. My 3 active bands are Hundreds of AU, Saetia, and Spirit Killer.
Wait, you're in Saetia too?
Yeah, I started playing in Saetia in 2022. So basically, okay. They like had those reunion shows, and they needed a guitar player, and they called me. It was like 2 months before the first show that they had. They called me and said, "We need a guitar player." So I learned all the songs and practiced with them twice, and played the reunion shows with them. And then they were like, "Hey, do you want to be in the band?" So then that was that. Yeah. Wow. So I've been playing in all 3 of those bands.
I just saw you at Bowery Ballroom, that show with On the Might of Princes.
Oh yeah, the one with it was On the Might and Medicinal, and yep. It was great. Yep. Yeah.
Must be pretty trippy to now be playing with Saetia and having all of this newfound exposure, right?
It's absolutely strange. Like mentioning before, like in Berlin last month, we played to like 600 people, and I was kind of like, if Saetia went to Berlin in 1998, it probably would have been like 40 people here, So yeah, it was moments like that are kind of surreal. Absolutely, yeah.
So Hundreds of AU, we have the new album coming up, Life in Parallel, which is amazing. I love it. I can't wait for everybody else to hear it. When does this band come together? How does it come together?
I started this band in 2017. I moved up to the Albany area up here in New York, and started trying to get involved in the punk and hardcore scene here, which was had something to be desired. As I started to meet people, nobody had heard of any of my bands. Nobody had heard of like I would be like, yeah, I kind of wanted to do something kind of like Portraits of Past or Reversal of Man, and people would be like, I don't know who these bands are. Like, it kind of seemed like that whole genre of music hadn't made it up here, and so like nobody had any like reference point for what that stuff was. So I found like two guys eventually who like were open to the idea, and we started the band. We played like 5 shows together, recorded a demo, and then they were like, nah, I'm not really into this. So I was just going to end the band. And at the time I was playing in I was playing back in New Jersey. I was playing in a band called New York in 64, which featured Justin, who sang for You and I. He was playing guitar for that band, and he liked the Hundreds of AU demo, and he said, hey, if you want to, like, I had these 2 shows booked and I was just going to cancel them. And he was like, if you want to play those 2 shows, I'll learn the bass lines. And I got my friend John, he could probably learn the drums, and we could play these 2 shows for you. And that was just going to be it. I was just going to play these last 2 shows and then kind of call it a day. We played the 2 shows, and Justin and John were like, hey, that went pretty well. What would you think about if we, tried to do this as a band? But it's like, they live in New Jersey, I live up here. It was like probably like a 3-hour commute for me to go down there for band practice. But they convinced me to do it. And we got, I think, like within the first month, we asked Paul to play guitar, and the 4 of us just started writing songs. And I still to this day do like about a 2.5 hour commute to band practice. It's maybe like once a month or twice a month or something, but I still do it. Yeah.
How long will that band practice be?
Usually we'll start at noon and end at like 4, something like that. I also write a lot of music at home, and I could like plot the songs out and send it to the band. And then the band will like either like learn the parts or write their own parts. And then by the time I show up, everybody's like ready to play the song. So sometimes the songwriting is expedited in that way, which is pretty cool. But it's been cool. I mean, this has been like a band that, we don't tour a whole bunch or do anything like that, but it's just been like really remarkable to get to play with like some of my favorite bands when they come through town and stuff. So
it's got to be great playing with Justin again too, right?
Yeah. So we played with Justin from 2017 to 2020 or 2021. And then he had a health problem with his back and couldn't jump around with a bass anymore. So then Paul's friend Buzz joined the band, and we did that lineup with Buzz in the band. And then after a little while, Paul and I sort of realized, like, you're always sacrificing something when you try to sing and play. So it's like, if you have somebody that's just going to do vocals, they're probably going to have a better performance than if you're trying to play at the same time. And so we got Brian to sing for the band. So this is the first LP with Brian doing the vocals and Buzz playing bass. And it came out great. I really like it.
I agree. Yes, I love it. When did we begin production on Life in Parallel? When did we start writing?
Yes, like basically November, I believe it was November 2023. We played a festival in Philadelphia, and I had sort of decided that was going to be the last time I was going to like scream and play guitar. I was like, after this, we're going to get somebody to sing for us, because this is just like too much. So we like kind of put a halt on writing songs, and we kind of like looked for somebody to sing for the band. And I think Brian joined the band in 2023. And
how'd you find him?
He sang in a band, or he sings in a band right now with Paul called Lesser Minds. And he went to school. I was in a band called Black Kites, 2009 to 2012. and he went to school with the singer from Black Heights, so I kind of knew him from back then. And so like we had seen Brian, we had seen his bands, we kind of like knew him. Paul had played in a band with him, so it's like we kind of knew that he was on the same page with us. So when we looked for a singer, he was living in Connecticut at the time, and he was like, I'm moving back to New Jersey. Maybe when I move back to New Jersey, this will work out. And by the time he moved back to New Jersey, we still hadn't found somebody. So he came over and he just belted it out, and it sounded great. And we were like, all right, let's start writing some new songs. So yeah, I started doing that when Brian joined in 2023, and just took our time, like, getting to know each other and writing songs and playing shows and just making sure that the band was like where it needed to be, and yeah, that was it.
Was that a difficult decision at all? Because you're used to this one band dynamic and you're singing, right? Are you writing the lyrics and doing all that too?
Yeah, it was probably I was probably doing like 70% of the lyrics and the songs, and then Paul was doing the other 30%.
So was it hard to then transfer that over? And did you think like, oh no, what if we do this and things don't work out? Did you think about any of that?
Nah, I was ready. I think honestly, what like put me into the mindset was I started playing in Spirit Killer, and we have just like a vocalist where I don't have to sing at all. And then shortly after, got asked to play in Saetia, and I don't have to sing at all in that band. And I was like, wow, this is a great experience, not having to have to scream. And like, and in Hundreds, I would, I would scream, and just like my head would be throbbing, and I would get like super dizzy. Sometimes the room would spin because I'd be screaming so hard. And then like, of course, your playing is not as good. So it was not a hard decision. It was like, I wish I could have that fun experience I have with Saetia and Spirit Killer, but with Hundreds of AU. And yeah, we managed to do that. So I was very excited.
It's comforting to hear you say that with all your years of experience, because I'm screaming and playing guitar in my current band now, and it is really hard. And there's a lot of effects involved. Yes. And sometimes I feel like I'm going to pass out and not even make it through the set. And it's like you said, you're always sacrificing something. And then when I see people who just play guitar, like once in a while, I'll just play guitar and not sing. If we're at practice and I don't know, we're writing and I don't feel like setting up the mic, and I'm like, God, this is so easy.
Exactly. It's like, especially like, I didn't even think about what you said before. Like when you bring like a pedal board into that, and now you're like turning stuff on and off in addition to playing guitar, in addition to screaming. That's a whole lot of like attention that has to be distributed to different things. And like something's gonna, something is gonna suffer because of that. Yeah, I mean, I totally feel you. Like what you just explained is exactly like where I was. Like we'd have band practice, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is so easy." Like because we would just not turn on the mics and be like, "This is great. This is awesome." Like, yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, hey, the new lineup. I have to say, nothing lost. I love it. I love the new record. Yeah, it's working. So I mean, you must feel good about everything, right? Some pressure off you to not pass out or sacrifice anything while playing in the band.
It's extremely enjoyable. Absolutely. And I think it's just kind of like, also like if you're not screaming as well, it's like you can also be like a little bit more coherent of like what's going on sometimes too. I think if you're screaming and playing guitar and doing all these things, it's like the show just kind of passes you by so fast because like you're not paying attention to anything else than like what you're doing. So it's like I can like look up at John who's playing drums and see different cues that he's doing, or like look, like it's just like certain things that I'm now can be more aware of, and which has made the experience a little bit easier as well. So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to ask that. I like blank out during the show because there's so much to focus on, and you're screaming and you're trying not to blow out your voice and you're trying to hit the right effects and you're trying to like move enough and you're trying to make enough eye contact with the audience so it's not weird. And we played a show. The sound person, she came on stage to fix something behind me for like the entire song. I didn't even notice until someone sent me a video later. And I was like, she was back there the whole time adjusting those mics. I had no idea. I'm just like in another world, like trying to spin all the plates and make sure everything goes okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you just explained is exactly what it was like. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, so for Capacities, I play bass and I scream, and we split the songs up. So it's like a 12 song set. And I probably sang like four of the songs. For those 4 songs, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like, they were like, oh, did you see that part where the crowd started to like clap along? And I'm like, no, I didn't see any of that. Like, it's just totally no comprehension of what's going on around you.
Well, it's nice to have this conversation with you. I figured everyone else is a consummate professional and just has a complete grasp over everything. And I'm the one guy out here barely holding it all together. But it sounds like there's still some difficulties for other seasoned individuals like yourself as well. And I take comfort in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What is the name of your band?
It is called Memory Entry. We are also on Iodine and Mind Over Matter. And we really just got started last year. Our first show was last year, and we've been playing around the Northeast.
Excellent. I got to check this out. All right.
Yes, please do. It's in the same vein as Hundreds of AU, I would say. A little noisier, noise rockish, but with that classic screamo sound as well.
Oh, we got to play some shows together. Awesome. I was
gonna say that. Yeah.
Do it. Yeah.
I'm gonna cut this part because it's not announced yet. But so you're on. So Hundreds of AU on Iodine Recordings now. How did that happen? When did you start talking to them?
So they messaged us a while back and said, "Hey, would you if you ever need somebody to put something out, maybe get in touch with us and we can have a talk about it." And I looked at their roster and I was like, oh shit, that's like a really impressive roster. I never asked specifically, but so we were on a split 7-inch with a band called Horsewhip from Florida, and Horsewhip had worked with Iodine, and I think that's how they had heard of us. So yeah, when we got Brian in the band, started to write, I went back into our social media and searched for that particular message that Iodine had sent and said, "Hey, would you still be up for this?" They did a call with us, like a Zoom call with us, just to kind of talk about the label and how the label works. And then they asked us some questions about how the band works. And I mean, because we're a band that's not going to go out on tour for like 45 days or, 6 months a year or something like that, I'm always a little weary to have anybody invest a lot of money into us or anything like that, because it's kind of like we're not out there grinding it out. We're just like people that have regular jobs who play as much as we can. And they were cool with that. And they seemed to be on the same page with us about a lot of things. And I mean, to just when I look at the roster of bands that we're on with, it's overwhelming. So I feel super honored and thankful at my age to get to do a release on a label like that.
Yeah, same here, because I've never been in a band that's been officially signed, and certainly have never been in a band on a label like Iodine or Mind Over Matter, where there's just a ton of good bands that I've listened to over the years. And I'm 43 now, so to get to do it now, I'm like, yes, awesome, great. I'm grateful for everything.
It's also sort of the process of how music is distributed and what goes into it, as opposed to what it was like when I started playing this kind of music in the 90s. There you have labels that maybe haven't adjusted to that, where it's hey, you have to do PR and you have to get on social media and you have to set up podcasts and you have to do these things. Iodine seems to understand that and seems to execute it really well and just kind of like has all their cards in a row when it comes to that. And so I definitely felt like we were stepping into something that was like a well-oiled machine, you know what I mean? So it was a step up for us for sure. We were kind of like dumbfounded at first, but it's been great.
Amazing. So what's coming up? We have Life in Parallel coming out. What's the release date on that?
It's going to be the end of August. I think it's the 22nd, but we're doing a record release weekend, September 19th through 21st, which will be at the Broadway in Brooklyn on the 19th, at Relic Music in Red Bank, New Jersey on the 20th, and then at Cinco de Mayo in New Brunswick, New Jersey on the 21st. So I think at Relic Music, we're going to play the album from start to finish.
Oh, nice. Okay. How about any other band happenings? Can you tell us about any more Capacities shows? Anything going on with Saetia?
So Capacities is going to play. There's a yearly festival for like screamo, emo, noisy stuff in Philadelphia called Dilly Dally Festival. And Capacities is playing this year. It's in November. Saetia is playing one more show this year. Don't think I can announce it yet, but I will say it's a festival and it's a show that I'm like super stoked to play. There'll be news about it soon. I'm very excited. Sorry to be so secretive about it. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce it yet. So, and then Spirit Killer has like a handful of shows in the Northeast, which are always fun. And like, I think we're going to be doing like Brooklyn and New Jersey and some upstate New York stuff as well. So
excellent. No shortage of things to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm trying to be more responsible and space them out a little bit more, but sometimes it just like, you don't have a choice in that matter. You get asked to play shows when they're happening and that's it.
Yeah. It's always all or nothing. When it rains, it pours.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's either like you said before, like I'm home and sitting there thinking like, what am I going to do today? Or I'm like traveling to Canada for the weekend, you know? So it's wild.
Amazing. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been listening to you for a long time. I still listen to you, and you know what? I will continue to do so. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And there you have it, Tom Schlatter. Great conversation with Tom. I was really excited to have him on the show because I've been listening to him in various bands for a long time now over the years. You and I, a classic foundational band for me and a lot of other people I knew growing up when I came into this music. The Assistant, also a great band. And I forgot that they played that show at my parents' house until fairly recently. I don't know, I remembered that sometime in the last 5 years, but that's cool. I was also curious about what Tom has been up to all these years, and he hasn't slowed down at all. Hundreds of AU, incredible band. Make sure you check out Life in Parallel if you have not heard it yet. It's easily one of my favorite records of the year. And he's the new guitar player in Saetia. I had no idea. I know that Saetia got a new guitar player sometime around 2022, I think, but I didn't realize it was Tom. How great is that, especially considering that he toured with them back in the day? But I'm sure that was part of the reason why they got him. So the guy makes a lot of great music, and it was a real pleasure to talk to him. So thank you so much, Tom, for coming on the show. So let's check in. How are we doing? This month is not turning out to be my favorite. Bad things keep happening. Unwanted things keep happening. But I'm trying to not catastrophize everything and be in a bad mood and just push forward and be positive because, it's a cliche, but one door closes, another opens, all that crap, right? Bad times are bound to happen, but we experience them and they make us stronger. And then more good times are after that, I guess. That's been my experience anyway. That's what I'm going with. So I'm just trying to push forward and focus on the positive. And there's plenty to be happy about. Memory Entry is moving forward We're working hard on the debut LP. We've got a show in Medford, Massachusetts this Friday, September 26th. That's at Deep Cuts. Teardrops is playing. They're an Iodine recordings band. The Promised End is opening the show. They're an awesome band from up there. So if you live in the area, definitely come check out the show. It's going to be a good one. And in podcast news, I'm going through every episode of the show on the podcast version and YouTube version and stripping out any music that is not mine. I don't want any more copyright trouble now or in the future. It's going to take a really long time. It's taking me a really long time. And I am in the process of putting episodes back up that got taken down from Spotify. Something like 30 or 40 episodes got pulled from Spotify because of music clips that I had in the episodes. You'll see those reposted on Fridays. So if you see an episode posted on Friday, it's a repeat. I'm reposting it to get it listed again on Spotify. So there won't be any music clips in the show anymore. However, do check out the New Scene 2025 Spotify playlist. Any band that I hear that I really dig, I put in there. I put all the guests we have for the entire year in that playlist. It's a very comprehensive space to listen to all the music associated with the show. And I have a playlist for every year that the show has been active. So check them out. I also recently caught the Slow Crush gig at Music Hall of Williamsburg a couple weeks ago. It's been a while since I've been to that venue, so it was good to be back. And look at this. I had the whole VIP section to myself. And what a dream come true. Nobody standing 1 centimeter from my face and slowly backing up. And I can't back up because there's someone directly behind me. But the person keeps inching back and inching back, even though they have 20 feet of space in front of them. Didn't have to deal with any of that. Flooding opened the show. I did not get there in time to see them, but I did catch some of Faytooth. And they were really, really good. Think doomy, sludgy shoegaze in the vein of Psalm, but even heavier. Really, really good band. Up next was Slow Crush. And they're just at the top of their game. Great set list with a mix of everything you'd want to hear from every album. They looked great. They sounded great. The live show was fantastic. And their new LP, Thirst, is amazing. It was a much needed, nice night out. I got to talk to Greg, their tour manager. He also plays guitar in Shiloh. He's been on the show before. I ran into Mike, the guitar player from Psalm. I ran into Jason, the drummer for Husbandry. I got to talk to Issa from Slow Crush for a little bit. I met Yella and some of the other guys from Slow Crush for a minute. It was a great night surrounded by great people, and that's really what I needed because that weekend was just not very fun otherwise. So I left that night and walked home with a big smile on my face, and it was awesome. So thank you so much, Issa, for getting me into the show, and good luck to you and the rest of the band on the tours coming up. By the way, if you're in Europe, Slow Crush and Psalm are touring together in Europe, and that is a killer lineup. So if you can go to one of those shows, definitely do it. That's all I've got for this week. I'm back next week with episode 300 of the podcast. 300 episodes of the New Scene. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. It's going to be a great one, so make sure you tune in, and I'll see you then.